Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the West End Imps show. As always, I'm Jake, joined today to discuss the 1-0 win over Oxford United by regular co-host Chris Conrath. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Morning, mate. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, really good, thanks. Are you?
Yeah, for the most part. You're looking very dapper in your retro shirt. Can I just add?
Yeah, it's really nice. I bought this yesterday morning. It caught my eye when they released them, and then I was like, I need to see it in the flesh. And I think actually they all look really nice. Obviously, the green and white sort of hooped one is a reissue of a reissue. But I particularly like the fact this one's got a sponsor on it, the old Sports Echo. And I just love the trim around the sleeve with the imps. So yeah, this is the one I've plumped for.
He's not taking it off, viewers, because he went to the game yesterday.
Wore it to the game, wore it to bed, woke up in it, had my breakfast in it, and now I'm recording with you in it.
Absolutely. Right, we'll move on then. Obviously, Oxford was going to be a tough test. They sacked their manager recently. Just in the build-up, did you think that might have changed anything from an Oxford point of view or a Lincoln point of view, that Carl Robinson, who had been there for, 5 years nearly, had lost his job, and we were literally going at Oxford as if we'd never known them before? What did you think about that?
I think it was probably quite a hard game for the team to prepare for all those reasons you've just said. My mindset was, I suspected that whoever potentially is going in to take over might have been at the game. I was looking out for Mr. Appleton. But yeah, I think it was it could have been a difficult game to prepare for because, you don't know how quite they're going to set up. But also I felt that there'd be a lot of their players that would be wanting to really put on a performance, because whoever comes in at the game or not will have watched the game for sure, and be sort of already taking a measure of the squad. Not that there's anything they can do with it now, but, some players might be thinking about summer, the season beyond. So yeah, it was. It had all the hallmarks for a tricky one, and as I said to you in the pub, facetiously, I said 1-1, but actually, I kind of felt we might lose the game going into the match.
And what did I tell you? We were going to win, and we're all absolutely fine. So, right then, team lineup was confirmed about 2:00. Well, exactly on 2:00, as it always is. I'm trying to think now. The TJ came out and Lewis came in, and Jack was dropped to the bench, and Shadipo brought back in. Ben House also come back in. I feel like there was another change that I'm missing. Harry Boyes came out, didn't he?
Boyes came out and Sean went back to left wing back.
Yeah. So obviously it was a fairly strong team, and we looked at the bench and went, do you know what? If with the likes of Vernon and Diamond on the bench, we could have changed the game if we needed to at any point. And so what did you make of the lineup?
I'm going to try and be politically correct, but on a personal level, I felt it was about time that Jack Diamond got dropped, and I had no beef with that at all. And actually, I think he is potentially, he's you're looking at the bench at 70, 60 minutes, whatever, and you're thinking, if I can bring Jack Diamond on, that's going to put a bit of fear into the opposition defence potentially. So, yeah, I think defensively very solid, very strong. I've said it many times. It pretty much picks itself, particularly when you've got Jacko and Joe Walsh, who's out for probably, who knows. But I don't think you can look far beyond the back line that we put out yesterday. I think it's exceptionally strong. Midfield of Erehun and Bishop, again, really happy with that. Been working nicely for the last few games that they've been playing together. And the front line, I think it's nice to have options, isn't it? I mean, I do question what Vernon has to do to get a start, but that's not being critical of either Mandroyu or Shadipo. But, he's certainly looked lively in the last couple of games, in my opinion, coming off the bench. And maybe that's where his place in the squad is. But, yeah, no surprises, I don't think, and no concerns about the starting 11.
Yeah, and Lass continued his little stint at right wing back. But he played really well on Tuesday. Obviously, we didn't do a show on Tuesday night for circumstances, but another strong performance on Lass, which we'll come on to. First half, then, I think Oxford sort of I think in the last couple of weeks we've come out the gates really strongly. Hence, you'll see the early goal was Ben House at Forest Green, Danny Mandroyu against MK Dons, even against Pompey, we come flying out the blocks. I feel like Oxford stopped us physically. They stopped us from doing it. I think Brannigan in midfield was just so dominant. He was so clever. They've got some very good players, and I think defensively they didn't allow us to start as quickly as we like to start. And I think that might have had a bit of a problem from our point of view. I don't think we were really forcing the issue enough. But I think sometimes you just got to give credit to Oxford and say, do you know what? We normally start the games the better of the two, but given the props, they did yesterday.
They did, and they're a really good side. I think Mark Kennedy said after the game, and I'd be inclined to agree, one of the better teams we've seen at Cinderbank this season. Thought they were very, very good side, and I'm sure we'll come on to some of the post-match reaction. Bearing in mind that Oxford, at the beginning of the season, I was certainly one of the people that was thinking, well, they'll be pushing for a playoff. So, to have got 6 points over 2 games off them, I think is an outstanding return. You can't get better than that. But yeah, they started really well. Like you say, the midfielder Brannigan was exceptional all game. I like the look of the little guy on the right. I can't remember his name. I think he was number 22 or 25.
27. Tyler Good something.
Goodroom, I think it is. Yeah,
Goodroom.
He impressed me as well in patches. And that big giant of a centre-back Moore, a bit of a shit house, but we all want one in our team, don't we? And, I thought he kept Ben House quiet when we were on the attack. Ben House continued to do what he always does when we're without the ball, which is an exceptional press.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Oxford had the first couple of opportunities. They saw one just go wide. There was one that was deflected. Went right at Rush's post, and I think before the goal there was one blocked off the line by Paudie O'Connor that looked destined to go in the bottom corner.
Yeah.
Obviously, then the game sort of changed on about 25 minutes. We had a corner. I think it's put back into the box by Ethan, and it looks, for all the love of the money, that the Oxford man is just going to clear the ball away. However, it's very quick thinking and very clever from Danny Mandroyu to nip his foot in. I've watched it back. I didn't think it was a penalty when I saw it live, but I've watched it back on the highlight show, and I've watched it again this morning. I think it's a definite penalty, and I think you can tell when it's a definite penalty when there were no arguments from the opposition players. I carefully examined the Oxford United playing staff, and nobody went up to the ref and went, because normally when you have that penalty given, defenders are moaning, saying, "Oh, it's never a penalty." That wasn't the case. Danny obviously stood up himself, blasted it down the middle, and put Lincoln a goal up, which was a little bit undeserved, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but you make your own luck, and I think Mandroyu deserves a lot of credit because it was very clever. Because the ball's played back in, and like you say, defender's just about to hoof it away, and he comes from behind him. Don't think the defender knows he's there. Just pokes it away, gets kicked, goes down, penalty all day long for me. But, I think it's good, clever football from Mandroyu to get into the position and kind of fox the defender a little bit. And, yeah, decent finish. I mean, I was thinking, I'd said to Luca, actually, literally a minute before the penalty, I wonder who takes penalties now Diamond's not in the side. And then literally we get one a minute later, and I was thinking, well, who's it going to be? Bishop or possibly Mandroyu? Monsma might have a blast. There's a few people that you think could take one. Pleased for Mandroyu that he took it, because he'd obviously missed one in the cup, hadn't he? So, good, decent penalty. I'm always a big fan of blasting it as hard as you can down the middle. So, yeah, 1-0, undeserved. And, over the 90 minutes, probably an undeserved 3 points, but I'm not going to complain about that.
I think after the goal, we then had our best spell in the entire game. I think we really, as we've not really been able to. I mean, it was ironic that we weren't able to do it, but we still played well anyway. We've not been able to kill teams off. It's been a point really this week with the result against MK and Forest Green. But I definitely think that they tried to kill the game off. They went for the jugular. We threw bodies forward to go and get that second goal. And for one reason or another, it just wouldn't fall. I don't think that's a criticism of the team. I just think the final ball perhaps wasn't as good as it needed to be. I can't remember any chances, especially after the goal that went, oh God, we should have scored that and made it 2. Shadipo had an opportunity, I think that was before the goal though, that was straight at Simon Eastwood. But again, we've not killed the game off, which has sort of given Oxford an opportunity going into the second half. And you thought, well, Oxford are going to only up the ante, in the second half, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, we did look like we were going for it. I think we're accepting of the fact, I think, as a fan base, that we need to push on and try and get the second when we do go ahead, because as has been shown in a few games across the season, that we, whilst we're exceptionally good defensively, there's opportunities. Oxford had probably 4 opportunities, I'd say, where they perhaps could or should have scored, barring, clearly, I think they had 3 off the line in the 90, and we'll come on to what was the exceptional moment at the end of the game from Carl. But yeah, I think that, we obviously were trying to get, I think maybe it was just kind of like, we just need to settle our fans, because when we go 1 up, everyone gets really twitchy, don't they, the last few games, and we're kind of expecting a late equaliser to go in. But yeah, going back to the Shadipo opportunity as well, I know he's probably not connected as well as he'd like to, and it was straight at the keeper, but it was a lovely touch and turn on the edge of the box from him, and shows that he's got really good technique, and I find him quite an exciting player. Yeah,
and then we'll move on to the second half then, which was pretty much all Oxford, really. It looked like a bit of a training activity. Attack versus defence. I didn't think we really got out. We didn't really try to get out. We were just happy to sit on the 1-goal lead, which people can be critical about. Some people will praise it and say, well, it's worked again. But some people will say, you want to go and kill the games off because we want to see exciting football. That's what we pay £400 a year for. And
yeah, but equally, if the opposition are playing as well as Oxford did, we can't be expected to put on a performance of, tiki-taka, pass it around, get through the lines, move it forward, score loads of goals. It's just not going to happen. It's a completely unrealistic expectation. And sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say, pretty disappointing performance, but 3 points at home, unbeaten still. I will take all of those all day long over a beautiful performance of football, which we have played and have ended up on the wrong end of. So yeah, it was all Oxford second half. We shifted formation and shape a little bit, brought on, made a couple of subs. I think going back to Sorensen, first half at right wing back, I thought he was outstanding, and he's got a great athleticism. He was forward thinking, and so he gets a lot of credit for me, because it's not a familiar position, I don't think, within this season's side for him, and I think he's done really well there filling in.
Yeah,
is it maybe a position he can nail down moving forward? I don't know, but I've got no objection to seeing him starting there, when the teams are announced in any game, because he's proven he can do a really good job. I thought he did fade a little when he moved into the middle, when we shifted the fork to the back 4. But yeah, it was all Oxford. It was, I don't think it was backs to the wall, but they really must be coming away very disappointed not to have got at least a point.
Yeah, I think just Ari Lass, that if he can add that attacking element that Sean Rowan sort of added over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, in terms of balls into the box, because Lass is really good, and I noticed it yesterday quite heavily, really good at turning the ball over. So when the ball's loose, Lass pounces, and he just...
Yes.
He's not like a headless chicken, because that would be slating him. But when he runs towards a goal, you haven't got the most confidence in him, because he's not really shown that he's got that clinical edge or that final ball in him before. I think if he can add that over the summer period or over the next however many games he gets at right wing back, I think he could potentially be an option there for maybe next season if that's the way Mark wants to play. But obviously, you mentioned the second half. Oxford had a couple of opportunities that they'll rue. There was one that Rushworth, and he won't want us to say it, he flapped at and it went straight to their man who's got an open goal, and he's clicked it over. Clearly that sort of tells us it's going to be our day. And then, like you mentioned, the one outstanding moment from the game, I think it was really well worked from Oxford. I think it was Brannigan was just tearing us to shreds in the midfield. Whoever we brought on he was going to be the better. He's a championship player, and he has significant championship interest for the last 3 years, and has just decided to stay at Oxford. It's like Harry Kane. He's got interest from United, City, Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid, but he wants to stay at Tottenham because that's his club. And Cameron Brannigan is a similar sort of player. Really, it was a really well worked move. I think it was a really a good volley back in towards the danger zone from the right winger. And the centre forward does everything right, really, doesn't he? He heads it powerfully on target. Just the problem is for him that Carl Rushworth is one of the best goalkeepers in the division, and I think maybe there were 2 goalkeepers better than him. The one at Plymouth who's injured, Cooper, who was unbelievable at Tinsel Bank earlier in the year, and then probably Trafford, who's at Manchester City, who's at Man City but is on loan at Bolton, who Mark Kennedy knows really well. So if we got promoted, maybe we might be interested in him, but we never know. So, I think the save from a goalkeeper's point of view is genuinely fantastic. He's sort of dived out the way and he's just left his arm back, calculated, of course. And it's a really strong arm, and it's just ballooned up in the air. And he deserved all the luck that he got. That it just sort of, when the ball goes up in the air, you're thinking, "Oh God, the centre forward is clearly going to rush in and just tap it over the line." But he deserved that bit of luck for the fantastic reflexes that he showed, didn't he?
Yeah, brilliant save, match-winning save. You can't put a price on those, can you? It was, he was diving down to his right, I think, expecting the header to go there, and he's put his arm up, got it, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, you run out of superlatives for Carl Rushworth this season. I think he's up there for Player of the Season amongst several, in my opinion. I think there's a good clear 3 or 4 that could be easily named Player of the Season. But yeah, there's so much confidence in the defence, and then if teams do break through the defence, when you've got a keeper of that confidence and that ability, coming to claim everything. It's very rare that he makes a mistake. When he claims a cross, he's straight onto the 18-yard line, looking to release, looking for a quick break, which is obviously the method that we're looking at implementing under Mark Kennedy. So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to start thinking too soon about next season, but he's going to be a big miss, isn't he? Because he won't be playing in League One next season.
Yeah, I think there's already been significant championship interest. And to be honest, I mean, you said to me that he might go back to Brighton and be the number 1 there. I could see that in maybe 2 or 3 years, given another loan out, in the championship, or perhaps even a Premier League loan, sort of someone further down the table than Brighton. But certainly a phenomenal goalkeeper and somebody that, in my opinion, is on the same level as Alex Palmer when we had Palmer in that playoff year. If we were in the playoffs, I think.
I think he's a level above Palmer. I thought Palmer was fantastic, but I think Rushworth is probably just betters him for me with his quick thinking, his distribution. And I have said a few times that in some games distribution's not been great, but I would say 99 games out of 100, he's an 8 out of 10 player, week in, week out.
We've just got to enjoy him for the next 13 games, because that's what loan players are for, and ultimately the loans work for Lincoln, and I think the loan has significantly worked for Carl, because he's definitely come on leaps and bounds from the first game. Right, man of the match.
And just on the keepers, before you move on, Jake, just on the keepers, I just thought it's worth mentioning, because I really like the fact that Mark Kennedy came out and mentioned Jordan Wright yesterday in his post-match, and how much impact he has on Carl's performances, pushing him to be better and better. And I thought that was a really good evidence of really good positive man management. So well done, Mark.
Well done, Jordan. Absolutely. Be interesting to see if Jordan can forge his way into the team next year, or whether we go down the lone goalkeeper route that we've actually got pretty much spot on for the last 3 seasons. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, we've been blessed, haven't we, with the lone keepers, definitely. And I think it's probably one position that I don't mind keeping as a lone position, because if we're getting a Premier League Championship quality keeper, that for me is not a bad position to be using one of the loans on. Although if Jordan Wright is playing in training as well as the backroom staff feel, he should be given a shot, shouldn't he? And of course, bringing Sam Long in as the number 2 perhaps next season. We'll see. I think we need to move more towards as many of our players and a little dusting of 2 or 3 really, really good caliber loans, because I think if you look across the back line, all our players, midfield in terms of Erehun, Virtue is on loan, isn't he? But Erehun, Bishop, Sanders, Sorensen, those all our players. So if we can bring in 1 or 2 exceptionally good forward players, then I think we'll be really well set up for next season to continue to solidify our place as a decent League One team.
Yeah, and just on that note, if there's any Premier League goalkeepers performing well in League Two, just have a look, because most likely he'll come and sign for Lincoln in the summer, because that's what happened. Right then, man of the match. I think this is going to be unanimous. I'm going to go first this week. As a goalkeeper myself, I'm giving it to Rushworth, purely because I thought he was outstanding. Distribution, stopping, he went down when he needed to. Obviously, the save, which was phenomenal. I think Rushworth was by far the best player on the pitch. Chris, who have you gone for?
Well, based on the fact I knew you'd go for Rushy, I've docked him half a point because at one corner he flapped and it had to be scooped off the line. And also the chance you mentioned earlier where he sort of flapped a little bit and it fell, and it was a great opportunity for them. I'm going to give it to Paudie O'Connor because I just love the fact that we've got, along with Jacko, when he's fit, an old school centre-back who will put his life on the line in his defensive responsibilities. And I thought he was excellent. I think he was just winning everything in the air. And he's, he's just for me, again, he's just one of those solid players. You're going to get a good performance. And, we joked about it, I think, after the game about all the Bradford fans when we signed him, saying, he's a walking red card. He hasn't had a red card. I don't think he's picked up many bookings, and he looks very composed, and I'm a huge fan. And moving forward, if we're going to be losing Mr. Poole, which, is likely in the summer, for me, hands down, going to be captain for next season.
Yeah, and just on point, I think it's been really impressive that he's played every minute of every game, and that was massively needed based on last year. So, big up to Paudie.
You build a defence around those types of players, don't you? That you're going to get a 7, 8 out of 10 performance week in, week out, that can remain fit, that aren't going to get, stupid red cards, which is what we were informed would happen with Paudie when he signed. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I think he's a crucial player in our system and the way we play, and particularly when we're sort of having to drop deeper because we're being forced deeper. His reading of the game is great. So yeah, big fan. So just on the fact that I've dropped Rushy half a point, Paudie gets it for me.
I actually think Paudie's got more opposition players sent off than he has picked up red cards himself for Lincoln. So Bradford fans, thank you very much for the centre half. I think that's going to be it for one episode. We're at 23 minutes, 25 minutes almost. We could go on forever. Thank you, Chris, as always, for joining me on a Sunday. I know you're very busy. I know you're about to go and cook a meal for the big old family, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. I'm going to go and have some pancakes for some breakfast and pick up a new fan from the range or somewhere where you get fans. But thank you for watching. I will be there on Tuesday night away at Cheltenham, and then me and Mr. Chris are making the long trip on the supporters coach down to Exeter on Saturday. So if anyone's on the supporters coach, come over, talk to us, have a chat. We're thinking about potentially doing a live West End Imps show, a live podcast on the way home. So we'll wait.
Be a live stream, wouldn't it? A live stream if it's on YouTube.
It would a live stream. Sorry, Chris. But please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the Stacey channel. They are trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of the season if that's possible. So please tell your friends. A lot of work goes into the channel from myself. You know, me and Chris put up our Sunday mornings. It takes me all day Sunday to do this, you know. So yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, up the imps.
Up the imps.